So, well, it's great to meet you, man. I want to begin our conversation with living through the last 3.5 years, getting through a pandemic. How did you get through it, and how did it change you?
Well, that's a very loaded question, but I would say the first thing that was a really big change for me was my work went remote. I think that wasn't something that was very big in many industries today, and I think that was a huge shift for me because once you figured out how to go remote and made it work due to the pandemic, you actually got more opportunities to connect with people, connect with more people. You can now have group sessions, you can reach people that, not just in your immediate area, but then, across the globe. So I think that opened up a world of opportunities for me. I also was able to be even more efficient because I didn't have to commute. I didn't have to, I could be in the comforts of my home the way I like to work, all the, comforts that I have, all the things that I want in my office, and then I can just work. And I think that is a freedom that wasn't available to me before.
So you're an inspirational coach for fathers, but let's get to the brass tacks of exactly what you do. I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of third graders. It's career day, and one of the kids asks you, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How do you answer that child?
Mm. I help dads connect with their kids. I don't know. It's that.
That makes sense. Yeah. So, what did you want to be in the third grade? What was your dream to grow up and become?
I I think I wanted to be a doctor like my father. Yeah.
Did you get into
It's like
medicine?
dad was the hero, you wanted to kind of do what dad does,
Of course.
dad was a physician.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you want to get the cape. Did you ever get into medicine at all?
I started in college. My first year was a pre-med track. So I was on track to go to medical school. Yes, until I dropped out.
So, what made you do that? What made you switch gears and ultimately get to the path you're at now?
Well, things started to happen with my family, actually leading up to why I even do this, which was my parents had a divorce, and my father, I haven't really had a great relationship with him. He's unfortunately very strict and religious, and he abused me and my mother physically and emotionally. Um, and he's done a lot of evil stuff. Even during the divorce, it was very, very ugly. Um, and he ended up fleeing the country. He didn't want to pay child support, alimony. He drained all the accounts of money and wired it overseas, and the courts couldn't do anything about it. And that was the last I kind of saw him for a while. And due to all that happening, I really asked myself, like, first of all, college now became on my dime. It's like first my parents were supporting me, but now that's not the case. So I had to look at, was it even worth it? Also, what do I even want to do? And that started to open my mind up asking those questions. I started reading, books like The Magic of Thinking Big, Think and Grow Rich. I started How to Win Friends, Influence People. I started reading these books that really started shaping my mind as far as like thinking bigger and big picture of like what I really wanted to do. Um, so that whole thing inspired me to start helping fathers connect with their children. Why? Because a couple years down the line, 4 or 5 years, I there was a chance to reconcile. I didn't want to reconcile. I got pressured in by my family because my sisters ended up reconnected somewhat on talking terms. Um, he had an opportunity of a lifetime to reconcile with his son after all the evil he's done, right? And I summed up 20 years of abuse in a couple sentences. So, I mean, I'm really just oversimplifying it, but um, instead of really taking responsibility and showing that he understood, he made a blanket apology statement saying, "We all did mistakes. I'm glad we can all start a new chapter." And it was clear that he wasn't really taking responsibility because I failed to understand how this was my mom's fault or my fault, that we got abused. I failed to understand that. And of course, he started getting defensive, started raising his voice, and that was the end of it. So, um, Now he does. Now we're not on talking terms, and we weren't even before. So like now there's no chance of reconciliation. So I started to think, how, like, what should he have done in order to reconcile? Because this is a severe case. Most fathers aren't in this position. Even he was able to reconcile if he did the things that I teach in my course. I have a 8-week group coaching course, and that's a lot of the things that we teach. So sometimes you don't get a third chance. That was his second chance, and that was his only chance in this case. So I want to empower fathers that you can reconnect with your children, and you just have to, have these things, have these tools, and understand how you need to approach it. Because the weird thing is also, and I know I'm getting on a little tangent
You're
here, but
fine. You're good.
the weird thing is that he will admit he's wrong to my sisters. He'll admit he was wrong to his own maybe friends or family, but he could never say it to my face.
Mm.
He couldn't look me in the eye. There was a pride, there was a ego, there was some sort of block that prevented him from, I don't know if he saw it as weak, saw it as like it was a masculinity thing, a pride thing, right? So it's really interesting, just that psychological dynamic. But that's what inspired me to uh help fathers. I think fathers don't get a space to do this. Fathers, I mean, what do they do? Talk to their business partners about it? They're not going to do that. If they're divorced, they don't have, a spouse to talk to about this. And fathers aren't really raised, at least in a traditional sense, to nurture and communicate and understand their children. They're raised to provide and protect. That's in the traditional sense. Mothers are generally more nurturing, especially in a traditional sense, taught on how to communicate, nurture, be kind, or, understand, have compassion, and fathers lack that. As the new generation is changing, but it's the sort of more traditional sense of fathers that
Yeah.
have trouble with this still. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you elaborate on that. That kind of opens up a little bit of more of a border here, or borders, I should say. So I'm curious, who's been a hero for you in your life?
Oh, there's so many. See, like when you don't have a father figure, what I ended up doing, and when I used to have therapy, he noticed this. I started filling my like that void with mentors. So like as I would meet people, like let's say in my software engineering job, I would I would yeah, I had like a CTO who I started getting really close with, and we could relate on many levels. And so he became like a mentor for me. In some of my networking circles, building relationships with certain people uh who I look up to, you know what I mean? And that helped me, and we connect on that level. So I fill in sort of the void. And not just people I've met, but people I read about, like Abraham Lincoln, or like Martin Luther King, or like some people really inspired and changed the world in big ways. And even people with similar stories who've had abusive fathers, like Marvin Gaye, for example, strict abusive father. Michael Jackson, like people who've related to that and still was able to make something positive out of that. I'm very inspired by.
So if you could meet anybody alive on the planet right now and spend some time with them, who'd it be?
Oh, loaded question. Loaded questions today. I think Abraham Lincoln would be great.
Yeah.
I think, um, yeah.
So what's your motivation? Every day you wake up, you're obviously helping other fathers out there, but you're also evolving yourself. What is that
Mm.
motivation for you?
I think it's multifaceted. I think if you just have one thing, one reason, it may not always be enough. I think for me, my pain definitely pushes me and drives me. I think the passion to change people's lives, the way I see like fathers who haven't talked to their son or daughter in 10 years or 15 years, or even like they've never gone so close. I think that is something that I really love, to see, and that really drives me because I know I'm helping people, and I know that I'm changing the trajectory of their entire life. They could have went 20 years without ever speaking to their kid, you know. And now those 20 years are filled with memories and love and understanding and compassion. And, it's time that they would have never had. So I think making such an impact, I think, is a huge reason why I do that. Um, and also, turning my negatives into positives, right? And not just, I don't just look at my pain and struggle and say, I got to make this work, but also seeing that this is a personal, purposeful thing for me is something that also drives me. Um, and just like the way that people come back say thank you, like without this, I don't know what I would do. I get to talk to my kid now, or I get to, we hung out for the first time in 10 years, you know, like that's powerful.
Yeah.
So,
What's been one of your best success stories? One that always puts a smile on your face?
oh, I think it has to be uh, the clients in general. I mean, I have a few clients that um, the longer you've been estranged, the harder it is to reconnect in general. Um, and so I had a client that was again like 20 years estranged. Like it was like some, crazy thing. He was a different person back in the day. And, he grew up as like the traditional physically, involved father. And unfortunately, it's just that's all he knew at that point, not using it as an excuse, right? But that's what he thought he needed to do to get the best out of his son, you know. So, obviously, estrangement happened. They couldn't see eye to eye and led separate lives for a long time. Then, I started working with him because I guess, when the thing about when you get older, you start to realize, or a lot of fathers start to realize that time is ticking.
Yeah.
And I think he's starting to, I think you may have experienced this. A lot of people experience this where uh, fathers or people in general, they kind of soften up as they grow older. They kind of like get a little more understanding, where in their prime years they were like super strict and like you couldn't mess with them. And now it's like, sometimes the things they allow, you're like, you would have never dealt with that 20 years ago, 30 years ago. So I think he was kind of getting to that point where like, okay, I think it's enough. So started working together, applying some of these principles. I teach how to communicate, the right way to communicate. I teach about how to listen. I teach about how to be compassionate, how to be curious. I teach the long game, about reconciliation. Because it may not be like, hey, let's connect. Oh, 20 years later, hey dad, like, yeah, let's have coffee. It's like that's not usually how it works. It'd be like, screw you, dad, like where have you been?
Yeah.
Like no, or absolutely not, like, it's like so and it really depends on the severity of the situation. So we went through and I taught him also, um all the principles surrounding building trust, all the problems you might encounter, how to keep your cool. It's very important how to like because I'm expecting fire. You may expect fire from your kid who's like built all this anger. Maybe they haven't resolved it. It's been 20 years, they've been building it up. Some people, some adult children, they do resolve it. They do go to therapy and they forgive themselves and forgive, the father, but they just don't reconnect. So they might be in a better position to reconnect at that point. Um, so going through the entire thing, and I think the thing about this, what's really important is to be able to, you have to radically shift your mindset when you're reconnecting because the estrangement is not really a small decision. To cut someone out of your life is not a small decision. And you can't just keep doing what you've always been doing before and expect something different to happen. That's insanity. We know that. So it has to be a radical shift in dynamic. Anyways, long story short, um, after months of patiently reaching out, no answer. Reaching out, no answer. Patiently, never getting angry, never getting mad. Months, holidays went by, this and that. Um, uh, Eventually, basically his response is his like whole sentiment is, I see dad is trying. I want to give him a chance. So that's what started the conversation, you know, and they started coming to an understanding, and really the compassion, the understanding, and like being able to acknowledge the other side, even if you don't agree with it, you don't have to agree with it. You just have to acknowledge it. Um, so right now, like they're on talking terms and they talk, and relationships take years to build, so they're not gonna be like, dad's on my lap, or the kid's on his lap, but you know, allowed to see grandchildren now, because oftentimes grandchildren not are off limits when there's a problem between parent and grandparent, or adult children and father. You get no access to grandchildren. So is able to actually visit for the first time, actually able
Yeah.
to see his grandchildren. I mean, that's, talk about impact and
Yeah.
changing someone's life, going from nothing to this, so um yeah, I mean, it's all impactful, but I think the ones where 15 years is a lot of time,
Yeah. Yeah,
you
that is a
know.
long time. So let me ask you this. If you were to have a dream tonight and ran into the 20-year-old version of you, and you could give that young version of you a piece of advice based on the wisdom you've gained in your life up to this point, what advice would you give your young self?
Hmm. Oh, it's just I wasn't prepared for all these deep questions. I would say there's even this year I'm learning so much things that I really felt like I should have learned. I think the one of the biggest things is, and it's really cliche, and it sucks that it's so cliche that people really dismiss it. But it's, you really, if you and you really can do what you want to do if you really believe in yourself and you unlock limiting beliefs. I know, cliche, we hear it, it's like been done, and I hate that because now people don't take it seriously. But I've seen it in myself and others, like once they unlock, like usually they get in their people get in their own way. Really, it really is. I mean, I felt like an imposter first trying to help people. Like, what do I know? I'm a 20-some-year-old, like, early 20s or whatever. Like, what do I know about parenting? I'm not a father. I don't have children. Like, what do I have to say about this? And it's really that's the part of getting in your own way, not realizing actually what I'm showing and this system I created is actually helping people. So like that slowly builds confidence. And so success really does build that confidence for you. And that's that belief in yourself. So believing in yourself is so key. But how do you build that belief in yourself is by proving it. So start with, okay, this is what I want to do. Okay, cool, prove it. When you prove it, like, oh, I helped this person, help this father, help that father, you start building confidence in, and you start then believing in yourself even more. Like, if I've done this, think about what else I can do. Think about how far I can take it, how many more people I can help. And then you start growing that way. So I think that it's so key, but it's so cliche and abstract that we would have a whole 5-hour conversation about
Yeah.
actionable steps,
Yeah.
on how to cultivate that.
So at the end of the day, there's all these people that exist in your life that see you in a certain light, family, friends, clients, colleagues, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
As far as like how people see me, or just
Well,
what I think
like,
of myself.
yeah, what you think of yourself, because you ultimately project that ultimate personality.
Well, I think, uh, I mean, I have ultimate confidence in my abilities. I think I am constantly becoming the best version that I can be every single day. I'm completely relentless. I'm curious. I'm the hardest working person probably you'll ever meet. I am super passionate. I am a trailblazer. I'm not afraid of, failing. I am, and even this thing, like this community and this program I built, like I don't, nobody I've talked to has heard of something like this, So this is something like I'm an innovative, like, okay, well, let me be the first. Why not? Like, don't be afraid to be the first to do something. Um, so I mean, might sound cocky or arrogant, but here's the thing, like if you believe you can do it, then not chances are you will do it. So I think really embodying like, yes, I'm the one to do this is something that, I will always advise people, not in a cocky sense, but saying like, I am the one to do this and I'm not going to be apologetic of it. I'm not going to apologize that I am great and I have greatness in me. I'm not going to apologize. I'm not going to be modest about it. I want to inspire other people. In fact, that's how I got inspired. There are people out there, like I look at like a Muhammad Ali, you know, sometimes cocky, arrogant, but he proved to the world that he was the greatest at that time, So it's like taking that and really into my life, like, why not? Why can't you be? We shouldn't be ashamed of you trying to be the greatest that you can possibly be. So that's how I think about
I
myself
like
in
it.
a
I dig it,
nutshell.
man. So, hey, Sam, if anyone wants to hire you, reach out to you, learn more about you, where can they go?
So I think you should have a link or something that may
Yeah.
have been sent to you.
Yeah.
In the show notes, that is a Calendly link. You could just book a session with me. It's a free breakthrough session. Take a look at your situation and see, if and how I can help. So, really, that's all
Right.
there is to it.
Cool, man. Sam, thank you. I appreciate your story. I appreciate your time. Have a great 2024.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, sir. Take care.